episode 141, and we're nearly finished with the first month of 2021. So now would be a good time to stop wishing each other a Happy New Year if you haven't already.
The 4 P's. Professional. Political. Practical. Personal.
But this week's 4 P's is chock full of good news to start the year, as well as a critical reflection on creativity, focus, and governing. As always, you can subscribe and read the 4 Ps as a Substack newsletter or listen to this week's content as a podcast on Spotify or a dozen other pod platforms. Or just stay right here and keep listening to something professional, practical, political, but starting with something personal. So let's start with some personal news to share that could also be professional and for some of you, someday, maybe practical. It's a 4 Ps exclusive, something that's been in the works for months, and I've loosely alluded to it here in the previous weeks. The digital marketing and content agency that I lead, Revelation, has been acquired, and I am proud that we are going to be joining the incredible Jellyfish Group. Well, we already have, dating back to January 1st. Happy New Year. Jellyfish is a global digital partner offering clients a unique blend of agency services, creative technology, consultancy, and training to support their digital journeys and transformation. This may sound similar to how other companies work, but it's actually really different. Now, over the past few months, I've been blown away by the passion, the expertise, the leadership, the innovation, the collaboration, the culture, the commitment to clients. And together, we will be operating as one truly integrated agency team, as a number of companies coming together under one global brand to serve all brand marketing and digital media needs. No holding company bullshit, no house of brands, no behind-the-scenes infighting and backstabbing and competing for bits and pieces of revenue. This is a truly new approach with a global, integrated, specialized team dynamic. Now, this outcome would not have been possible without the right outputs over the years. The brilliance and incredible drive of our Revelation team, our clients, and the Web Media Network. I'm proud that we will now help round out a best-in-class insights, strategy, omni-channel content, and creative model for our brand partners. It's one that can truly achieve new levels of greatness together as we're now part of this team that is 2,000 digital experts in 40-plus international offices. Jellyfish already works with many of the world's leading brands in some pretty significant ways. Uber, eBay, Samsung, Spotify, Nestle, Netflix, Danone, even UGG. Together, we represent a new kind of digital business, and I'm excited to further develop the platform for global content and creative production, one that combines cutting-edge technology with award-winning creative talent to really deliver a one-stop solution for global brands and e-commerce companies wrestling with increasing demands for efficiency, scale, impact, and that outstanding creative quality. So are you ready? Because we sure as hell are. We're already doing it together and have been for months. And we need your help. We're hiring for hundreds of roles. So please reach out and drop a line if you're interested.
Sometimes, when you're digging into a Ben & Jerry's pint, you're really just chasing those chunks with reckless abandon. At long last, Ben & Jerry's has freed the chunks. Go straight for the good stuff with a bag of totally snackable cookie, brownie, and half-baked dough chunks.
Do you consider yourself to be creative? But what about creative with a capital C? I've had many conversations over the past few weeks and months and even years about the definition of creative, whether it's as an adjective, a noun, a proper noun, creative as a process, as ideas, creative as content, also creative as a person. And with a multitude of creative teams and capabilities now coming together at Jellyfish, through innovation and evolution and even acquisition, The different applications of creative ideation and direction and experience, development, production, distribution, and optimization, it requires a new common language and vocabulary. Now, outside of the marketing profession, results and performance are measured by the quality of the outcome. Did the firefighters put out the fire? Did the electrician successfully install the lighting units? Did the physician properly administer the correct medication to heal the patient? Yet for creatives, with a capital C, too much of an emphasis on outcome can be discouraging. In truth, every great outcome typically is the result of an optimized process. Companies, agencies, and even in-house brand teams that require collaboration for creativity cannot have many individual separate creative processes. It has to be more connected and consistent. So trusting the process, even if it feels uncomfortable or unnatural, is usually the first step in the process. A process is very different than purpose. But whether you're free-flowing or working within an outline or to a brief, creative purpose is the one thing you always need to establish before you start working, as well as balancing personal creative purpose with that collaborative creative process. Well, the hardest thing in the world is trying to be creative. Maybe not the hardest thing, but forcing things rarely works. The internet has democratized creativity with anyone and everyone capable of making and posting content. But does that a creative make? Of course not. Creativity is truly evaluated by critical response, which may at times include negative feedback, inputs for revision, constructive direction. So choosing to be a professional creative requires some bravery. Being creative in marketing and advertising also requires a broader understanding of the business, the brand objectives, the consumer target, the KPIs, the platforms and channels that we use, the measurement tools. But having worked with some of the most incredibly talented, high-achieving, award-winning, best-compensated creatives, I've also learned that creative success isn't directly tied to creative genius. The best creatives are committed to improving their crafts. They recognize and can adapt the function of the work, whether it's to entertain or to educate, to inspire emotion, to compel or create some sort of action. They understand the context beyond the creative. They're curious and constantly reading and learning and listening and engaging, pushing beyond their comfort zones. Creativity can feel spontaneous, magical even, but unfortunately, if you're a creative professional, it can be unpredictable. So thinking about your intentions, your target audience, and improving your skill set and broadening that can turn anyone with creativity into a professional, capital C creative success story. Something practical. And given the insane amount of tasks and responsibilities associated with integrating and merging businesses, I can honestly say that I've never had more going on, whether it's HR related, IT, finance, operations and logistics, new teams and collaborations and processes, new tools to learn, new capabilities and functions I've never even heard of, not to mention expanded client opportunities. Now, staying organized, proactive, and on top of things has been no easy task, but it's actually something I've prided myself on for most of my entire professional career. But given the volume and frequency of everything going on right now, I found myself occasionally struggling to just stay focused. Now, information overload can severely impair our ability to think. But right now, I just can't afford any distractions or careless mistakes. No sloppy thinking. I got to be on the ball. No dropping of the many balls in the air currently at this time. Many people confuse busyness, though, with business. Yet, ironically, the more information that we consume, the less intelligent we become. We're surrounded by nonstop digital chatter all day and night, with emails and texts and tweets and snaps, and they're competing for our attention. And it requires increasing discipline to resist those temptations. You know that when we multitask and switch gears and jump from screen to screen, we cannot fully process information in a way that is healthy. This constant need for stimulation, and ultimately, it's like a hit of dopamine. Instead of being content to settle down and engage with a task properly, we need that hit after hit of gratifying but ultimately superficial stimulation. Now, a London psychologist believes that multitasking can deplete or diminish our IQ by 10 points and says it's more dangerous than smoking pot. Certainly debatable. But we do know that multitasking harms our ability to communicate and to connect. And believe me, I am as guilty of this as anyone. The information on our phones is definitely more stimulating than having a conversation with family at the dinner table. But it's ruining our kids. Their brains are not fully developed. They're more susceptible to the hyperactive risk-reward system and more vulnerable to addiction. They end up unable to tune out the noise. They're more distractible and less able to emote and relate to others. So, look, if you've made it this far, I'm sorry for having contributed to the problem. However, I do hope that you've at least stayed focused on the task at hand and realize that attention is currency. Invest and spend it wisely. Save it. Store it properly. A focused mind is sharp and precise, whereas a distracted mind is dull and throbbing. A recurring theme here in the 4Ps over the past few weeks has been about prioritizing our goals and laying out a clear plan of action to achieve them. And when the noise gets too loud, we just can't focus on our goals. And that can we need to minimize our distractions and the temptations, no matter what. This means identifying everything that's good and necessary in our lives while getting rid of everything else. Simplicity should be our watchword here. Another way to avoid distraction is to declutter, emotionally and physically. Now, set clear boundaries and compartmentalize things. For example, I have a separate email inbox for all the newsletters and work-related thought leadership to which I've subscribed. It keeps my personal and even my work email inboxes free from distraction throughout the day, and then I can read those things on my own time. Some things I know I need to get better at, refining my listening skills, my written and verbal communication skills to keep myself, and perhaps even more importantly, others from getting distracted. And knowing now that your mind is probably already starting to drift means I should get to the point. Plain and simple. Keep things plain and simple. And finally, something political. And as the Biden administration is off and running, a week in, with some major actions and accomplishments already in motion, this is going to be the last time in this space where I mention Donald Trump, hopefully. He's no longer the president, but his role in the insurrection at the Capitol a few weeks back has resulted in an unprecedented second impeachment. So what now? While many argue a compelling case for the Senate to just let it go, precedent, legality, and moral accountability preclude them from dropping this case. There have been many lower-profile impeachments of federal officials in the past that the Senate has managed, and this gives us a playbook for how I'd like to see things go. Let's keep it as relatively by the book and unassuming as possible, let the evidence speak for itself, limit the media spectacle and the public discourse. But we can't afford to just dismiss it outright. Justice and the Constitution require a trial, a hearing now to determine accountability for crimes allegedly committed and lives definitely lost. President Biden has said he wouldn't mind if the impeachment trial started after the Senate is able to get some business out of the way, confirm some cabinet nominees, and take some action given the pandemic and just other challenges his administration faces. And it's a position that some Democratic leaders and senators have backed, but not all yet. So the upcoming trial is unprecedented in several ways. No president has ever been impeached twice, and no president has ever been tried by the Senate after he left office. I think in 1974, the House abandoned impeachment articles after Richard Nixon resigned. But unlike Trump, Nixon had already been elected twice, and therefore he wasn't eligible to even run again under the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution. There was no need to really hold him accountable after Gerald Ford granted him a full pardon after he left office. And the likelihood that Trump running again, it's just low in my opinion. But this is as much about punishment as it is deterrence for the future. So now, for the rest of us, we should move onward. As we discuss things political, it's important to distinguish between politics and governing. Noting the distinction earlier, politics is the process, whereas government is the outcome. Governing means writing and passing and executing laws that improve our way of life. For now, the priority is that the legally elected houses of Congress and the president, which they comprise the action-oriented branches of the government, their priorities, as they've defined them, are COVID-19 management, prevention, and treatment, the restoration of our sagging economy, a commitment to leading the world on curbing climate change, social justice reform, and disarming the violent, disturbing intentions of hopefully a small, yet extremist right-wing fringe group. That's governing. That's not politics. Sure, the minority party will attempt to negotiate, force compromise, work within the rules to serve their constituents, and potentially even delay reforms, though, that are much needed. But let's all agree to ignore politics for a short period of time and give this newly elected government and newly installed government a chance to bring about meaningful, lasting change and progress. Now, I can't tell you how optimistic and how hopeful and how supportive colleagues and friends in other nations around the world have been these past few months, but especially since the inauguration last week. While we cannot erase all the damage overnight, we are back on track again. Our happiness and relief in the U.S. is very much theirs as well. They look to us. Many people have wrongly attributed a quote from Sir Winston Churchill about the U.S. that says, Americans will always do the right thing only after exhausting all the alternatives. People don't think he really ever said that, but we've certainly tried one alternative these past few years, and it's failed miserably. America's role as a democratic leader and a force for good may have taken a hit these past 4 years, but the world needs us to be that shining beacon of light, that city on the hill, once again. So it's time to do the right thing and the right things.